I'm Ken Moore, and on this special edition of Arkansas AgCast, I'm speaking with John McMinn. John is the Forestry Division Coordinator for Arkansas Farm Bureau, and we're going to be discussing for the next couple of minutes the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our state's timber industry. And they have been fairly significant. And John, thanks for joining us today. First of all, if you will, just explain how the pandemic has affected the small family businesses within our timber industry. There's a lot of logging businesses, truck hauling businesses within the timber industry, and they've been hit hard. In fact, I've read where there is an effort to receive some congressional aid and assistance for these small family businesses.
Ken, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. The timber industry has been struggling, especially since the virus hit. You know, they're not immune to it, just like any other industry in agriculture hasn't been. Majority of our loggers and distributors of those logs are family-owned operations, contractors, and they depend on that harvest of that timber to, operate and fund their businesses. The situation with the virus was that it knocked down a lot of the demand for new home construction, and with that new home construction, it decreased the amount those mills that were producing that lumber knocked down their production quite a bit. When it knocked down their production, it knocked down how much they were buying from those small family loggers and operators.
Is there any way for you to put it into a dollar value as far as how this is hitting them in the pocketbook financially? I know that, like you just said, the demand has diminished, but this is going to have some long-term effects. It's not going to be over with in the next several months.
Yeah, if you look at it on an owner's side, how much expense they incur every year, they've got millions of dollars wrapped up in equipment, labor, very, very specialized and trained labor at that. Also, insurance prices are really high for these, especially the log truckers and transporting those logs. According to Dr. Matthew Pelkey, with a 15% reduction in timber production on an annual level, as many as 650 loggers could be out of work, and $58 million in logs would not be delivered to the Arkansas sawmills and paper mills. The total effect on rural areas of the state would be more than 1,100 jobs and $60 million gone from the state's economy.
My. Well, Dr. Matthew Pelkey, who is with the University of Arkansas at Monticello, their School of Forestry down there, has written several economic impact reports as we've gone through the pandemic. And in his most recent report, he said that in March and April of this year alone, timber production fell 480,000 tons.
Oh yeah.
So multiply that out over the next several months to the end of the year. I mean, that's stark.
Yeah, percentage-wise, like I said, that's that 15%. But when you word it as a 480,000 tons of production lost, we can't sustain that year after year. There's no way. And if that continues, we're going to lose money within the state. Timber is one of the biggest natural resources in our state. 60% of our state is in timber production. So, and not only that, but 5% of our economy in the state depends on timber production. So imagine how much, if you were to lose that industry, or percentage of that industry every year, how detrimental that could possibly be.
Yes, for sure, and it is. It's one of the largest sectors of agriculture in our state, as you just said, and yet people have been hearing and reading all about the supply chain issues within the livestock industry, the challenges row crop farmers have been facing this year as well, but they don't really think about the impacts on timber. So what happens, look, a year down the road, how long will it take to recover, do you think?
The timber industry is very specialized, like I said earlier, and it's not something you can just jump into. It takes millions of dollars just to operate a timber operation, just to be in a logger or a trucker at that. So if you have a business that gets out, it's almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but highly, highly difficult to just jump back into it. The capital you need to operate something like that is going to be very difficult. So you're looking at multiple years that this impact could have on the timber industry.
John, I appreciate your explaining this for us. We'll get back with you here, a few months down the road and see how the recovery, if we are into one, is underway, hopefully. But thanks for explaining the impacts on our timber industry for us today.
Thank you for having me.